Hello everyone, welcome to Geopolitica. So today in this topic, we will going to talk about what is deep state and the how deep state work, कैसे काम करता है deep state, कैसे deep state किसी भी topic को उठा के किसी भी country में put कर देता है with the help of different kinds of elements they use as a tool, and after that they use those tools to manipulate the market of that particular country to earn the billions of dollars from their market. तो नया ट्रेंड चालू हुआ है कि क्लाइमेट चेंज, एग्रीकल्चर, सीड मार्केट, फर्टिलाइजर, these are the trends are nowadays is being used by the deep state to earn the billions of dollars. So देखो हम यूज किया है NGOs. What are the NGOs? NGOs are called the non-governmental organization. कैसे deep state इस NGOs को यूज करता है, and with the help of these NGOs, the deep state running this world, and how they are using those NGOs to manipulate the economy of a particular country, to manipulate the internal politics of a particular country, how they influence the peoples with the help of those NGOs, how they influence the universities with the help of those NGOs, and how they influence the local businesses with the help of those NGOs. The deep state actually uses those NGOs to create the steers within the country and create different kinds of problems within the country, and they then force that government to solve that problem with the help of those NGOs. And this is how they manipulate the market. This is how they exterminate the chances of that market into the global economy. Their actually goal is to control the global economy, to maintain the monopoly of the world. So the deep state का concept कैसे आया, how the concept of the deep state came into being, तो कैसे आया उसको समझते पहले. तो we all know about the industrial revolution. So industrial revolution कब आया? The industrial revolution आया 1760s में. तो उसने the industrial revolution started in 1760 and it went on to 1820 to 1840. क्यों इंडस्ट्रियल रेवोल्यूशन आया? इंडस्ट्रियल रेवोल्यूशन के पीछे एक कारण था. वो कारण था द ट्रांजिशन फ्रॉम द एग्रीकल्चरल मार्केट टू इंडस्ट्रियलाइज मार्केट. तो इंडस्ट्रियल रेवोल्यूशन कैसे आया? विदाउट इंडस्ट्रियल बेस इंडस्ट्रियल रेवोल्यूशन आना पॉसिबल नहीं था. तो कैसे आया? तो वो आया क्योंकि एट दैट टाइम देयर वर साइंटिस्ट, डिफरेंट साइंटिस्ट फ्रॉम द डिफरेंट एरिनास of different engineering fields, some were from the physics field, some were from the chemistry field. So they started discovering the things. At that time, the Gutenberg discovered the press. At that time, the James Watt discovered the steam engine. And also the industrial revolution particularly affected the textile market of that time. So जब industrial revolution आया, तो इंडस्ट्रियल रेवोल्यूशन आने के बाद द यूरोपियन मार्केट स्टार्टेड प्रोड्यूसिंग द फाइन गुड्स एंड दे डिड नॉट हैव द मार्केट्स. They did not have the market because their markets were too small to produce that good and sell that goods at a particular rate. So what they did, they started sending the travelers around the world in order to find the different countries. Their particular goal was India. Why India? क्यों इंडिया उन लोगों के पास इतना खास था? क्योंकि at that time the European market was flooded by the Indian goods, and the Indian goods were so good that was not even in comparison when they started producing the goods using the machines, using the fine chemicals, using the different kinds of other procedures. But at that time the Indian goods were far more better than the goods that those goods they were producing using the machines. तो मशीन में जो गुड्स वो लोग प्रोड्यूस कर रहा था उससे ज़्यादा अच्छा था इंडियन गुड्स. तो इसीलिए उन लोगों को एक आइडिया था इंडिया के बारे में. इंडिया इज एन गोल्डन पैरट and we all need to go to India to do the business, to spread the business, and also to capture the market, and also to destroy the Indian market, destroy the Indian artisan market, destroy the Indian MSME market at that time. So why they wanted to destroy that? Because Indian goods were flooding their market and their goods were not that good to sell into that market. सो उन लोगों ने ट्रैवलर भेजा, तो ट्रैवलर भेज के वो इंडिया के लिए ट्रैवलर भेजते थे, बट those travelers actually discovered several other countries in Africa, and they also discovered United States at that time. At that time, United States were ruled by the Red Indians. So ऐसे वैसे उन लोगों ने देश कवर करना शुरू कर दिया, खोजना शुरू कर दिया. तो खोजने के बाद डिफरेंट कंट्रीज, यूनाइटेड किंगडम आया, पुर्तगाल आया, स्पेन आया, जर्मनी आया, उसके बाद डच नीदरलैंड्स आया, and also several other countries, Russia भी आया, but Russia did not send the travelers outside the world to seek for the other countries. What they did their influence. They did their influence, that they had the influence at that time, the huge influence at the neighboring countries. So they started doing their business in the neighboring countries. But इंग्लैंड बहुत छोटा था, स्पेन बहुत छोटा था, तो इसीलिए इन लोगों ने बाहर ट्रैवलर भेजना शुरू कर दिया टू सीक फॉर द डिफरेंट कंट्रीज. सो फर्स्ट इंडिया आया, वो था पुर्तगीज ट्रैवलर वास्को डा गामा फर्स्ट इंडिया में आया. वो इंडिया में आके वो 2 जहाज भर के इंडियन गुड्स लेके गया वो यूरोपियन मार्केट में, एंड ही अर्न्स thousands of dollars at that time. Dollars, I cannot say the dollars, but thousands of money, whatever the money they had at that time, the Vasco da Gama earned huge amounts of money at that time. And by seeing that, different other countries started sending their business interest in India. पुर्तगीज आया, उसके बाद फ्रेंच आया, उसके बाद डच भी आया. तो उसके बाद आया at the last, उसके बाद सबसे at the end, the British actually came to India, and उन लोगों ने 200 साल इंडिया में राज किया. 200 साल कैसे राज किया? Because they used the different kinds of tactics and the different kinds of tricks to fool the Indian rulers, to capture the lands by implementing different kinds of land bills. And they used that procedure to capture the lands from the Indian farmers. And they started producing the raw material by forcing the Indian farmer to produce that particular groups. They started producing different kinds of cash crops. The cash crops like indigo, like cotton, they started producing those goods because that kinds of raw material was required for their industrial base, which is back there in the United Kingdom, and also for the other countries in France and Spain, Dutch, in Netherlands. So they forcing the English forced the Indian farmers to produce the raw materials that was required for their industrial base back in home. So तो उसके बाद में क्या हुआ? In 1917 the first world war start हुआ because they started colonizing the world, and the fight between the colonizers, the Germany, then at that time the Turkey was the Ottoman Empire, and also the Spain, United Kingdom, France, उन लोगों के बीच में एक competition शुरू हुआ. So that competition led to the war. Then that was known to the world as a First World War, or sometimes called the Great War. And first, why this is called the First World War? Because they make other colonial powers involved in that war. That is why, from that sense, this is called the First World War. But the war was confined into the Europe, that was not spread across the world. Anyway, after the 1970, things changed because Germany was controlled. But after 1935, the things in the Germany changed slowly but very steadily. The Hitler came into power. After Hitler came into power, he had ambitious projects in his heads, different kinds of ambition. He was atrocious too, because he ended the democracy in Germany. And by ending the democracy in Germany in 1939, he invaded his border countries, Belgium, Poland, different countries. He invaded all the border countries in Europe, and the Second World War began. तो Second World War के टाइम क्या हुआ? The United Kingdom did not make itself involved into the Second World War immediately, because उन लोगों को पता था कि if United States get involved into the country, they have to use that resources for its own use. तो वो क्या कर रहा था? That country, the United States, was sending the resources to the Europe to fight the war against the Germany. But United States have to enter the war when the Pearl Harbor happened, when the Germany attacked the Pearl Harbor and killed several Americans and destroyed several boats for a specific fleet which was there in the Pearl Harbor in Hawaii. So उसके बाद United States आया. The United States आने के बाद at last in 1945 the war ended when United States dropped 2 nuclear bombs in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So जब हिरोशिमा और नागासाकी में न्यूक्लियर बॉम्ब ड्रॉप किया तो उसके बाद वर्ल्ड वॉर एंड हो गया. बट हाउ द डीप स्टेट केम इनटू एन बीइंग, व्हाई द डीप स्टेट केम एंड हाउ दे फॉर्म्ड. बिकॉज डीप स्टेट का मतलब क्या होता है? डीप स्टेट मीन्स द डीप स्टेट वर्क्स behind the government. They are controlling the government of the United States, in some instance the United Kingdom, and also some instance some other countries, some other European countries like Germany, and also in case of France we can say, in case of Spain we can say, in case of Portugal we can say. So Western European countries, the governments are being controlled by those groups or the peoples, those who are behind the curtain of the government of those countries. तो ऐसे डीप स्टेट आया. तो डीप स्टेट का एग्जाम्पल्स क्या होता है? डीप स्टेट का एग्जाम्पल, देयर आर सेवरल एग्जाम्पल्स ऑफ डीप स्टेट. तो देयर आर सेवरल ग्रुप्स those who were formed at the time of the Cold War, because 1945 के बाद कोल्ड वॉर आया. सो कोल्ड वॉर में क्या हुआ? कोल्ड वॉर में हुआ कि the rivalry between the USSR, Soviet Union, and the United States grew. And as the rivalry grew, the competitions lead to the different kinds of discovery of different other things. The space rivalry भी आया, उसके बाद energy rivalry भी आया, then उसके बाद geopoliticals, and geopolitical rivalry में क्या आया? And those countries, the United States involved into the several war, and as well as the Soviet Union also get itself involved into the several war. The United Kingdom also followed the path of the United States, because United Kingdom का जो power था at the time of colonial period, their power reduced. They became weak, very very weak, and their currency also became very very weak. And then United States come into play. Then United States dollar became very powerful. They formed the United Nations, which was the offshoot of the League of Nations, which was a failed organizations. So United Nation भी create हुआ. तो United Nation create होने के बाद different kinds of other organization आया to handle the different matter. तो क्या हुआ? जब United Nation आया, तो United Nation आने के बाद the climate was a big issue, because these countries, these industrialized countries were producing the goods using the coal, particularly the coal. So coal में क्या हुआ? These countries were producing the greenhouse gases. Greenhouse gas जब produce हुआ, then the temperatures of the world started increasing. Then they used the climate change as a tool to form the different organization in the United Nation. The United Nation में क्या हुआ? In 1979, the World Climate Conference, the first World Climate Conference was held and acknowledged the role of the countries in causing the climate change and paved the way for the United Nations to study that climate change. तो climate change का concept आया 1979 में. So climate change का issue क्यों आया? Climate change का issue आने के पीछे एक ही कारण था, वो था the industrialization by the developing countries. And those developing countries were producing goods using coal and also using the crude oil at that time, because use of the crude oil became predominant in the Western societies, and as a result they were producing the goods using those two things, and they were producing the greenhouse gases. As a result of the producing greenhouse gases, the temperature of the earth started increasing, and when the temperature of the earth started increasing, the concept of the climate change becoming predominant into the society. तो इसलिए क्या हुआ? Subsequently in 1988 में क्या हुआ? 1988 में यूनाइटेड नेशन का 2 ग्रुप था, दो ग्रुप था, द यूनाइटेड नेशन एनवायरमेंटल प्रोग्राम एंड द वर्ल्ड मेट्रोलॉजिकल ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, उसका एक्रोनिम है WMO. उन लोगों ने क्या किया, इस दो ग्रुप ने क्या किया, दे एस्टैब्लिश ए डेडिकेटेड ऑर्गेनाइजेशन डेडिकेटेड टू द क्लाइमेट चेंज. उसका नाम था द इंटर गवर्नमेंटल पैनल ऑन क्लाइमेट चेंज, एक्रोनिम है IPCC. एंड दैट इज एन वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट चेंज दैट हैपेंड एट दैट टाइम. वो उसका काम क्या था, वो काम करता था, वो कलेक्टेड द डेटा ऑन द क्लाइमेट चेंज एंड कलेक्टेड द डेटा टू फॉर्म ए पर्टिकुलर रिपोर्ट अकॉर्डिंग टू द डेटा एंड पब्लिश द डेटा ईयर आफ्टर ईयर. तो उसका काम ये था. तो IPCC फॉर्म हो गया. उसके बाद उसके साथ WMO भी था, उसके साथ डिफरेंट काइंड्स ऑफ अदर इन्वायरमेंटल प्रोग्राम भी था टू फिक्स द इन्वायरमेंट, टू फिक्स द क्लाइमेट. बट उसके बाद 1997 में एक बहुत बड़ा काम हुआ. तो वो व्हाट वाज दैट बिग थिंग हैपेंड इन द 1997, वो हुआ था द यूनाइटेड नेशन एडोप्टेड द कियोटो प्रोटोकॉल. द कियोटो प्रोटोकॉल, उसका नाम कियोटो प्रोटोकॉल हुआ क्योंकि द एनवायरमेंटल ग्रुप्स and those environmental event actually happened in the Kyoto. Kyoto is the city which is in Japan, and according to the name of that city, the protocol became the Kyoto Protocol. तो उसमें क्या था, that treaty, that protocol which required the 37 industrialized nation, including the United States, to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions, which was to come into an effect 2005. So 1997 में एक प्रोटोकॉल आया, कियोटो प्रोटोकॉल. उसको इफेक्ट में आने के लिए 8 साल लगा. 2005 में वो इफेक्ट में आया. तो उसका आर्गुमेंट क्या था, द आर्गुमेंट फॉर द एडॉप्शन ऑफ द प्रोटोकॉल फॉर डेवलप्ड वर्ल्ड, नॉट द डेवलपिंग वर्ल्ड. एट दैट टाइम डेवलप्ड वर्ल्ड वाज ओनली रिस्पॉन्सिबल फॉर द एमिशन ऑफ द ग्रीन हाउस गैसेज. इसीलिए द डेवलप्ड वर्ल्ड आया, एंड वाज दैट दीज कंट्रीज had to reduce the greenhouse gas emission. And how it will going to happen, and that was proposed that they have to externalize their industries in different countries. They have to help the developing world to set up the different industrial complexes in their own countries to diversify the emission of the greenhouse gases. तो उसका concept आया. but at that time, several oil producing organizations, they were not ready to accept the Kyoto Protocol. So they started arguing against the Kyoto Protocol as it was not favorable to their business interest. उसका business interest क्या था, उसका business interest है to produce the oil, and to produce the oil, the emission of the greenhouse gas is must. So therefore, if the Kyoto Protocol came into an effect, it will going to affect their business interested. So therefore there was several oil producing companies. तो उसके अंदर ऑयल प्रोड्यूसिंग कंपनी कौन कौन था, उसके अंदर था ब्रिटिश पेट्रोलियम BP, शेल था, एंड एक्सॉन मोबिल था. तो एक्सॉन मोबिल, ये लोग क्या करता था, दिस कंपनीज actually producing the oil from the Western Asian countries, particularly from Iran, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Qatar. These countries, their business empire was in those countries to produce the oil and to send the oil in the different countries in the developing world. So they were producing the oil for the world, and they had the monopoly in oil business. इसीलिए उन लोगों ने इसका खूब जोर विरोध किया, particularly the Exxon Mobil ऐसा विरोध किया कि उसका जो CEO था, द फॉर्मर CEO, द ली रेमंड ने एक बीरा उठाया. तो उन लोगों ने क्या किया, टू प्रूव द क्लाइमेट चेंज रॉन्ग, एंड द एक्सन मोबिल स्टार्टेड फंडिंग ग्रुप्स एंड क्रिएटेड ए टीम कॉल्ड द ग्लोबल क्लाइमेट साइंस टीम टू चेंज द सेम. तो उन लोगों ने ग्रुप को फंड करना शुरू कर दिया. कौन सा ग्रुप, different kinds of NGOs, different kinds of groups particularly responsible for the climatic actions, and climatic action means to publish the report regarding the climate. तो उन लोगों ने उसका जो रिपोर्ट था, to manipulate those report, they started funding those groups. So उनमें था, and in 1998 उन लोगों ने क्या किया, they started a program called the Oregon Project. उसका पर्टिकुलर नेम था द ग्लोबल वार्मिंग प्रोटेक्शन प्रोजेक्ट. उसका रिकॉग्निशन था ऑरिगन इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ साइंस एंड मेडिसिन. तो उन लोगों ने क्या किया, द सिग्नेचर प्रोग्राम स्टार्ट किया, एक सिग्नेचर कलेक्शन प्रोग्राम स्टार्ट किया फ्रॉम द साइंटिस्ट हु बिलीव्ड दैट देयर वाज नो साइंटिफिक एविडेंस प्रोवाइडिंग दैट क्लाइमेट चेंज इज मैन मेड. तो एक्सॉन मोबिल ने क्लाइमेट चेंज के अगेंस्ट एक मुहिम खोल दिया कि उन लोगों का argument tha the climate change was not responsible because of the man-made reason. There were some other reasons that were responsible for the climate change. Who knows that what was those reasons? Nobody knows that what are the other reasons that was responsible for the climate change. And those groups that were funded by the ExxonMobil, they did not came up with an particular list of things that was particularly responsible and not being made by the human beings. तो उस सिग्नेचर प्रोग्राम में क्या हुआ, तो उन पिटीशन में 31,400 सिग्नेचर साइन हुआ, बट उनमें से ओनली 39 क्लाइमेटोलॉजिस्ट ने उन पिटीशन को साइन किया था. बिकॉज दैट वाज द स्केप्टिक थिंग्स, बिकॉज द ह्यूमन बींग्स वाज रिस्पॉन्सिबल for the climate change. You can clearly see that the deep state, how the deep state works, you can see over here. They started funding those groups, and they also pushed the government not to sign the Kyoto Protocol. What they did that they pushed then the president of the United States, the George W. Bush, not to sign the Kyoto Protocol. They forced the George W. Bush to withdraw from Kyoto Protocol in 2005. And similar thing happened in the 2017. When the Donald Trump did the same thing by withdrawing the United States from the Paris Agreement. तो Paris Agreement में क्या था? Paris Agreement में था क्या? 1.5 डिग्री टेम्परेचर राइज को लिमिट करना है, टू लिमिट द राइज ऑफ द 1.5 डिग्री सेंटीग्रेड. उसके लिए क्या करना था? ग्रीन हाउस गैस एमिशन, द सेम थिंग, उसको रिड्यूस करना है. एंड सो मेनी रिन्यूएबल थिंग्स हैज टू बी अप्लाइड टू प्रोड्यूस द एनर्जी. तो इन लोगों ने, बट 2005 में इन लोगों के प्रेशर में, इन ऑयल कंपनीज के प्रेशर में, जॉर्ज डब्ल्यू बुश withdrawal from the Kyoto Protocol. So you can see that, you can clearly see how the things work over here under the pressure of these pressure groups. Because Exxon Mobil का जो फाउंडर है उसके बारे में मैं बाद में बात करूंगा. I mean, in next slides, in some from the next slide, I will going to talk about that who is the founder of the Exxon Mobil and what was their interest. Because the man who actually behind the foundations of the organizations, that man or that organizations is particularly called the deep state. That is the pure definitions of the deep state over here. That how they force a government of the United States, the world most powerful country's government of the United States, not to sign the Kyoto Protocol. And that has happened for the first time. And they also did the same in 2008. 2008 में जब यूएस प्रेसिडेंशियल इलेक्शन था, तब जो लोग यूएस प्रेसिडेंशियल इलेक्शन में लड़ रहा था, तब 3 लोग थे. तो डेमोक्रेटिक पार्टी से था बराक ओबामा, एंड रिपब्लिकन में था जॉन मैकेन, एंड हिलारी क्लिंटन वाज आल्सो देयर फॉर द प्रेसिडेंटशिप, बट शी डिड नॉट ओन. तो उन लोगों का आर्गुमेंट क्या था? In the run-up to the presidential polls of the 2008, the John McCain and the Hillary Clinton advocated a cap and the trade legalize the things. Legalize capping means उन लोग cap कर रहा था the use of the oil, use of the conventional energy, different kinds of conventional energy के ऊपर cap लगाना चाहता था. So they were these peoples, I mean the Barack Obama and the Hillary Clinton, they both were advocated for the use of the renewable energy by reducing the use of the conventional fuels. जॉन मैकेन किया था? जॉन मैकेन ने सेम काम किया था, बट इन अ डिफरेंट फॉर्म. जॉन मैकेन वाज एडवोकेटिंग फॉर द न्यूक्लियर पावर प्लांट, and the nuclear power plant are in the true sense is not an renewable energy. It is a renewable energy, but in true sense it is not an renewable energy. उसके पीछे कारण है क्योंकि in the when you are producing the electricity by using the nuclear fuel, then you are producing also the nuclear waste, and to control the nuclear waste, to handle the nuclear waste, you need the nuclear pits to collect those nuclear waste and the store in different places, and to store those things you need the space. And because if you are not storing those things, if you are sending those things to the other places, the use of those nuclear waste being used by the terrorist, it's very very much certain. So that is why to control the waste is very much important. So जॉन मैकेन ने क्या किया था, जॉन मैकेन ने बोला था कि उन लोग ये करेंगे, जॉन मैकेन ने न्यूक्लियर फ्यूल के लिए एडवोकेसी किया था, एंड बराक ओबामा एंड हिलारी क्लिंटन वाज एडवोकेटिंग फॉर द यूज ऑफ द रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी के यूज में क्या आया था विंड पावर एंड ऑल्सो द सोलर पावर, एंड ultimately the Barack Obama became the president of the United States in 2008. And after becoming the president of the United States, what happened? In 2009 January 8, a bill came up. The bill का नाम था the Waxman-Markey Carbon Regulation Bill. Let me give you the name again. The Waxman-Markey Carbon Regulation Bill, which advocated the cap and trade. So वो bill आया था in 2009 में आया था, and that would replace the pollution and encourage the United States. And the United States means the organization, those who are working in the United States, to adopt a clean energy economy and empower its renewable energy industry. But that bill was not passed. You can see over there the pressure from the groups, those who are working behind the curtain, where the power of these presidents came to an end. So these groups, the same groups, were forcing the government of the United States not to pass that bill. And that bill was very good for the environment, because that bill was bringing the cap and the use of the conventional energy. So उन लोगों ने क्या किया, renewable energy को push नहीं किया, but they were advocating. But surprisingly in December 2006, तो एक्सन मोबिल ने क्या किया था, एक्सन मोबिल चेंज देयर ट्यून. उन लोगों ने उसका ट्यून चेंज किया, क्योंकि उन लोग दे स्टार्टेड एडवोकेटिंग द क्लाइमेट चेंज एज ए रियलिटी, दैट क्लाइमेट चेंज इज रियल एंड वी हैव टू गो फॉर द रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी. क्यों किया उन लोगों ने? क्योंकि एट दैट टाइम दे started realizing that renewable energy is a real market, and there is a chance for them to invest in that market and to earn the billions. So उन लोगों ने क्या किया, they started investing in the renewable market. And और एक काम किया था एक्सॉन मोबिल ने in 2007 in its corporate citizenship report. हर साल ये सब large organizations, they publish different kinds of report to give to make the world know about their work. So उन लोगों ने आया था corporate citizenship report में क्या बोला था. The Exxon announced that from 2008 it would not contribute to research the group that denied the climate change. You can see the timeline over here. 2006 ने Exxon Mobil ने क्या किया, Exxon Mobil ने बोला कि climate change is the reality. In 2007 उन लोगों ने एक रिपोर्ट पब्लिश किया, उसका नाम था कॉर्पोरेट सिटीजनशिप रिपोर्ट. एंड अकॉर्डिंग टू द रिपोर्ट उन लोगों ने क्या कहा कि फ्रॉम 2008 इट वुड नॉट कंट्रीब्यूट टू रिसर्च ग्रुप दैट डिनाइड द क्लाइमेट चेंज, एंड दे वर डिनाइंग द क्लाइमेट चेंज बिफोर 2006. एंड इन 2008 में क्या हुआ, एंड 2008 में when the presidential race was on, then all the presidential race candidates were saying that the renewable energy is the future of the world, the future of the United States, and it should be accepted by the world, and it should be accepted by the United States. And according to that, they came up with a bill, and the bill called Waxman-Markey Carbon Regulation Bill. And surprisingly, that bill did not pass. That bill did not pass the Congress. So you can see the hypocrisy of the United States and those deep states, those who were working behind from the curtain. And you can see that those groups, that how they are working, how they are controlling the world, how they are controlling the world by using the presidents of the world's most powerful country. So they are the leaders, those who were ruling the United States, they are not controlling the United States. Particularly the people, the deep state is controlling everything around the world, because they have the monopoly. They have created the monopoly after the end of the 1945. Because 1945 में बहुत कुछ हुआ था, बहुत सारा रिपोर्ट आया था, बहुत सारा लोगों ने बहुत सारा रिपोर्ट पब्लिश किया था. And according to that report, the United States started realizing that they have to do these things to create the monopoly around the world, to create the world market, to monopolize the world market, to control the world market, and to control everything, the distribution from production to distributions, everything needed to be controlled. And in the next slide, we will going to talk about that, what was that plan. Before going into the report, we first need to understand a scam. And that scam is IPCC scam. The IPCC means the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. तो उसके बारे में मैंने पहले भी बात किया हुआ है. Now we will going to understand what is IPCC scam and how it was orchestrated. By understanding the IPCC scam, we will going to understand that how deep rooted the root of this deep state is. Because the deep states actually manipulated a report which was published by an world organization to manipulate the market of a particular country. Market of a particular country, in this case, is India, and also China in some extent. So they use that report to control the market of India, to manipulate the market of India, to get the profit out of it. So what is that report? I'm not saying that the climate change is not real. The climate change is real and it is happening, and it needed to be stopped. But it cannot be stopped with the help of these groups, those who are manipulating the market, those who are from the face of the earth. They are showing themselves as an climate change activist. From the behind, they are representing themselves as they are using that climate change to manipulate the market of different countries. In this case is India, but they also use these groups, use these tactics to manipulate the market of some other countries. So in this case is India. So how did they do it? We will going to understand that. The IPCC, as I said, the IPCC is responsible for publishing a report year after year. Every year they publish a report. But in 2007, what they did, they came up with a report, and that report says the glaciers in Himalayas are receding faster than in any other part of the world, and if the present rate continues, the likelihood of them disappearing by the year 2035 and perhaps sooner is very high. So that report is very concerning, because according to the report, by 2035, Indian rivers devoid of any water, because the Indian rivers are, most of the North Indian rivers are glaciers melt. So if the glaciers will not be there, then those rivers won't have the waters anymore, the devoid of waters. So what will going to happen there? The famine will be prevalent, the crops will be destroyed because of the lack of water, and the peoples will started dying. So that report was there to create the mayhem in the Indian market, to take some measures by the Indian government in case of the renewable energy acceptance. So they wanted, those who were manipulating the IPCC, they wanted India to go renewable instead of going for the conventional energy, in this case coal and crude oil. So they wanted India to go for the renewable, and that claim was orchestrated by the IPCC at that time, the infamous IPCC chairman Dr. Rajendra Pachuri. And he also received received severe criticisms from the different groups, different climatic groups around the world, because according to them that was not possible. But according to the IPCC, as that was possible, IPCC was the highest organizations regarding the climate change. That is why as the chairman of the IPCC, the Dr. Rajendra Pachuri, received several criticisms, severe criticisms from the different groups, because they knew that that report was wrong. And how the Dr. Rajendra Pachuri was being manipulated, it was discovered that these allegations of the melting Himalayan glaciers originated from a report by the Dr. Saeed Hasnain. Who was Dr. Saeed Hasnain? Dr. Saeed Hasnain, at that time working in an organization, a Delhi-based organization. Its name is the Energy and the Resource Institute. The acronym is TERI, and Dr. Pachuri was his director. So you can link that thing. I mean, Dr. Pachuri reported that report as an IPCC chairman, and he accepted that report from the Dr. Saeed Hasnain, who was working in his own organizations. And Dr. Pachuri was funded by whom? The Dr. Pachuri was funded by Carnegie Corporation. And Carnegie Corporation funded by whom? The Carnegie Corporation was funded by Ford Foundations and the Rockefeller Foundation. And these two organizations are the pillars of the American global quest since the last century, and are responsible for exporting its capitalistic ideology. These two organizations are responsible for forcing the ideas of the capitalistic ideology around the world, killing the socialistic ideology in a socialistic way. They are pushing the socialistic ideology in the democratic country by creating the mayhem. The leftist ideologies are being pushed by these two organizations through the NGOs. In this case, the NGO's name is Carnegie Corporations, who gave Dr. Pachuri's organization TERI $5 lakh to publish the report that was used to manipulate the Indian market. In May 2009, the TERI was also given a role in a €3 million project funded by the European Union. Even after that, even after 2007, in May 2009, the TERI was given a role in a €3 million project funded by the European Union. In this case, why the European Union gave them the project after knowing that that man was responsible for manipulating the report of the IPCC, being the chairman of that group, of that organization? Because the Europe mostly come under the influence of these organizations, these Ford Foundations, these Rockefeller Foundation. They have different kinds of prizes, that these prizes are being given by these organizations to a particular peoples of a particular ideology to push those kinds of ideology in a particular country. So they are using their ideology, they are using their money to push the ideology of theirs, to push the ideology of the United States in the form of a leftist form, and create the mayhem into the market, and to push the market in kinds of an unstable position, and helping those organizations to earn billions of dollars from that particular market. It is an extortion, and extortions is being done by this organization. And previously I have also talked about the ExxonMobil, and now I will going to tell you who is the founder of the ExxonMobil. ExxonMobil was founded by one of the Rockefeller. In this case, I think David Rockefeller was the founder of the ExxonMobil, and now the ExxonMobil is being controlled by the Rockefeller Foundation. So you can see the link. The Rockefeller Foundations wanted United States not to sign the Kyoto Protocol, and for that they created several kinds of NGOs. They funded several NGOs, several educational institutions to come up against the climate change. Now they are advocating that climate change is real and the renewable energy needed to be accepted because they have invested billions of dollars in renewable energy industry, and that renewable energy products needed to be sold. Now how they are being sold? They are being sold by using that report, the manipulating the reports of these kinds of organizations, and created the mayhem into the market and forcing the countries to accept the renewable energy sources, renewable energy goods, and to promote the renewable energy in that country. So you can see the scam. The scam is being done by these organizations, and you can see that how deep the root of these deep states, of this organization, in this case deep states means these Rockefeller Foundations and the Ford Foundations. And today they are joined by the another organization called the Gates Foundation, the most powerful philanthropic body in the world that distributes over $3 billion globally. Annually, they $3 billion, they spend $3 billion annually. And whom is being controlled? Who is controlling that Gates Foundation? The Gates Foundation is controlled by Bill Gates, who is the founder of the Microsoft, and his ex-wife, the Melinda Gates. These two persons are controlling the Gates Foundations, and these organizations is now pushing for the renewable energy agenda. Bill Gates have also wrote several books on climate change, maybe for the good from the positive point of view. But these kinds of organizations are mainly responsible to control the resources around the world by manipulating the reports. And as I said, that 3 million euro project funded by the European Union was given to the Terry as a result of that. And citing the WWF, the World Wide Fund's 2005 report, the European Union set up its High Noon project to study the impact of the melting Himalayan glaciers, aiming to win the support for the actions on the climate change at the 2009 Copenhagen conference. The world knew in the 2007 that the IPCC have published a report which was a pure scam. As a result, when the Copenhagen conference was about to happen, then 1,000 hacked email and the documents spanning 13 years of research for the climatic scientist at the University of East Angelia's research unit surfaced before the conference. And that when those emails was published in front of the world, then the truth came out. That report that was about to published in the Copenhagen conference, that was also being manipulated by these organizations to spread the agenda, to spread the propaganda in this case that Himalayan glaciers are being melted because of the emissions that is being created by the industries that are in India and that needed to be stopped, and primarily at that time also in China, and that needed to be stopped. So you can clearly see the invisible hand, in this case the invisible hand, those who are controlling the market, the energy market of the world, the distribution of the energy market of the world, and also the food market of the world, the food security market of the world, and everything. The banking systems is being controlled by these groups. There is another groups called Rothschild. The Rothschild is the group. They also have a oil business. They are also in oil business. Their oil business particularly in Black Sea and the Caspian Sea regions. They have the oil business in Baku, which is in Azerbaijan. So these organizations are controlling the world to send the energy different parts of the world using, and what they are doing, they are forcing the world to use the US dollar, because the US dollar became the petrodollar after United States and Saudi Arabia signed an agreement in 1973. In 1973, United States signed an agreement with Saudi Arabia on the ground that United States will going to provide the security to the Saudi Arabian oil industry and the Saudi Arabia itself, and in return the Saudi Arabia will going to receive the payment of the oil in dollar. So and from that moment the dollar became the petrodollar. Around the world all the countries started accepting dollar as the payment of the as the payment of the crude oil. When the Iraq, in this case Iran and Syria, Iran had also tried to divert from the petroleum, from the dollar. At that time, what happened? These two countries are now in dust. Their leaders are dead. In case of Iraq, Saddam Hussein, which was a creation of the United States, now he is dead. And in case of Libya, which was Muammar Gaddafi, he is also dead. He decided to sell oil by using euro, and Saddam Hussein also decided to sell oil using euro. Now they are no more. Now in the next slide we will going to talk about what was actually the plan that was funded by the Rockefeller Foundations, and on that plan, on that report, the international politics of the United States actually depends on. Now we will going to talk about the report, which was actually responsible for outlining the basic of the US foreign policy in the post-World War II to emerge as the superpower. Actually, that report helped the United States to emerge as the superpower of the world. And the name of that project was the Wire Peace Studies Project by CFR. CFR का full name क्या है? CFR का full नाम है the Council of Foreign Relations. And that Council of Foreign Relations is being run by the same Rockefeller group, the David Rockefeller Studies Program. That persons, the Rockefeller Foundations, was responsible for making that report. That report was made between 1939 and 1945. What happened between 1939 and the 1945? The World War II happened. And at that time, the Rockefeller Foundation spent 3,50,000 rupees to make that report. You can see that how much amounts of money they spend to make the United States policy with the help of that report. And there was two pillars. What are those two pillars in that report? The first pillar was to control the world economy with the help of the banking system. कैसे उन लोगों ने बैंकिंग सिस्टम क्रिएट किया? By creating the World Bank and the IMF. The World Bank and IMF का काम क्या है? They provide the loan to the countries. Those who needed money, and they took the money from the world, and when they give the loan to the same countries and they put the interest on them, it is our money, and they are giving our money to us, but with interest. You can see the irony over here. And the second pillar was they created an aid. The organizations which is responsible for providing the grant in different organizations, different socialistic organizations, different economic organizations around the world, to provide the grant to those organizations. And the need for the development of the bilateral assistance agreement currently organized by, and the name of that organization is USAID. What is the full form of the USAID? The USAID stands for the United States Agency for International Development. And this agency is infamous for providing the grants to the NGOs, those who are responsible for creating the mayhem within the country in the name of democracy, sometimes in the name of sovereignty, sometimes in the name of economic liberty, sometimes in the name of social liberty. So you can see that how they have created their clout around the world with the help of that organization. Can you see their deep thoughts and कितना दूर उन लोग सोच सकता था? How far they can see. They saw that thing that if they needed to control the world, they have to create two pillars, and they created those two pillars. And according to the Robert F. Kennedy, the Democratic US presidential candidate this year, he is the Democratic US presidential candidate, and according to him, the United States have started investing millions of dollars into the US or European media market. Why? Because the Ukrainian war is going on, and also they needed some kinds of diplomacy which is related to the COVID vaccine. They pushed the COVID vaccine into the European market, and the investment of those things are there. Investments of those organizations are also there in those drugs making organizations. So the COVID diplomacy was also there, and USAID give thousands of dollars, millions of dollars into the market, into the media market, where they needed to be controlled. They needed the control in the media market to spread some kinds of information, we can say the misinformations in this case, to create some kind of disturbance, to earn some extra dollar from the market. And they have stroked also different kinds of programs to draw African students into the US universities. And in 1920s, they have organized a program called under the banner of Phil Stokes Fund and the Rockefeller charities. They draw African students into the US universities, they indoctrinated them, and they sent them back to the Africa. And they did the same thing to the Asian students, the students, those who were from India, those who were from China, and those who were from the other countries. And they accepted those students. They gave them concessions for the education. They gave them funds for the educations, because the cost of the educations in the United States is too high. That is why these USAIDs, through the USAIDs, different kinds of organizations used to receive or still receiving millions of dollars to provide the funds to the students, those who are very bright in the study, and they are being drawn by the US universities, and the US universities are being controlled by these organizations. Look at this irony. The Ford Foundation, the single-handedly established the major area studies program in the American universities, which focus on the research and the study particularly to the geographic. In the case of geographic, the geopolitics is also comes here. National matters and also the cultural regions, because these three things are very, very dynamic. Geopolitics is very dynamic, national things are very dynamic, and cultural things, it can be manipulated. Cultural things are not very dynamic in different countries, but it is very dynamic in several countries. But in case of India, it is very intact because of our secular ideology. In true sense, secular ideology actually lives in India. So the Ford Foundations was responsible for making the syllabus of several universities. Let me give you some example. The important general research centers supported by the Ford Foundations during the 1950s and the 1970s, including the MIT Center for the International Studies, the Harvard Center for the International Affairs, Center for Strategic Studies at Georgetown University, the Institute of International Studies at Berkeley, the Stanford University Institute for Communication and Research, and the Center for International Studies at Princeton University. All these universities, the Harvard University, Princeton University, MIT, Berkeley, Stanford, these are the Ivy League universities of the United States and of the world, and their syllabus are being controlled by the Ford Foundations and some of the other groups. So you can clearly see the hand of these invisible hands in making some of the students influenced by some of the different kinds of some ideologies that they want to indoctrinate these students, those who are going in those universities, being indoctrinated by their ideas, by their propaganda machines. So, and the teachers जो वह पढ़ाता है, so those teachers are also responsible. Those who are providing the students the lectures, they are also receiving the millions of dollars from these organizations in the name of research, in the name of other things. So indoctrinations is very much there in the United States, in the university level. So that is why their ideology is the ideology of the United nationalism. Look at the nationalism of the United States. The nationalism of the United States in the 1945 was so intact. Even in the 1970s, it was so intact that it was unshakable. But in today's time, when you will going to see the nationalism among the population of the United States, they are divided. They are divided on the basis of race. Now they are divided on the basis of gender. Now they are divided on the basis of ideology, color of the skin. Different kinds of things has appeared after the inceptions of this president is in the chair right now. So these different kinds of ideologies have infringed the US nationalism. So nationalism has become very weak in these days in the United States, and the ideology which is prevalent in today's time, that is being addressed as an woke ideology. The woke ideology, it's not in the true sense, it is not an woke ideology. If you want to understand what is the concept of the woke ideology, you have to go to the days of the French revolutions. The waken up to the ideological level actually came from the French Revolution. The woke ideology in today's time, in the name of gender, in the name of color, in the name of race, it is very wrong. It is wrong. It is killing the nationalism among the Americans. Look at the recruitment of the United States Army. The United States Army is not getting the proper amount of recruitment in these years. They are lacking. At least the reductions in the जो लोग पहले आर्मी में आता था, उन लोगों का आने का जो परसेंटेज था, उन लोगों का आने का जो इंटेंसिटी है, वो बहुत हद तक घट गया है. एटलीस्ट 25%. द रिडक्शंस in the inductions in the United States Army has been reduced by 25%. You can see it is appalling. It is appalling because now these kinds of ideologies are killing the nationalism among the populations of the United States. And United States, they have to understand, these groups have to understand that this will going to weak their country, weak their own country in which they are living. So it is very important for them to understand, not for us to understand. Now, the climate change. The climate change it's real. It's थोड़ा बहुत extent तक ये बहुत सही है, and climate change is damn real in today's time. But when the climate change actually came up, and now the climate change ideas are there only to target the India. How they are targeting the India? They are targeting the India. They are depriving India of energy security. The India is a population of 1.4 billion. तो 1.4 बिलियन पॉपुलेशन के लिए इंडिया को चाहिए बहुत सारा रिसोर्सेज, बहुत सारा एनर्जी. सो एज द इंडिया इज ग्रोइंग, सो इसीलिए इंडिया को बहुत सारा एनर्जी रिसोर्स की ज़रूरत है. बट दीज कंट्रीज, बट दीज ग्रुप्स डू नॉट वांट इंडिया टू बी एन रिसोर्स इंडिपेंडेंट, बिकॉज अगर इंडिया रिसोर्स इंडिपेंडेंट हो जाएगा तो इन लोगों का जो प्रॉफिट मार्जिन है वो घट जाएगा. तो मोनोपोली ऑफ दीज ग्रुप्स विल बी रिड्यूस्ड. And the US and the China quietly agreed on the climate change deal in the 2014. इसीलिए 2014 में US and the China quietly agreed on the climate change. No one knows that what United States and the China has signed, because the particular motto of the China and the United States was to keep India at the bay. Do not let the India to grow faster. And in 2014, a revolutionary things happened in the Indian election history, because in 2014, after the prime ministership of the Atal Bihari Vajpayee, the Narendra Modi government came into power. That according to the Western media outlet, it is an right wing, but according to the Indian, it is a government which is helping India to grow faster than expected, and it is happening in true sense. With the United States, European Union and China on board, there was a major push to make India commit to the carbon emission. These countries wanted India to commit to the carbon emission, but these countries was not committed to their own carbon emission. They were responsible for the carbon emissions for the world. In case of United States, look at the United States. They are responsible for around 20% of carbon emissions of the world. Look at China. They are responsible for around 20% of carbon emission around the world. Look at European Union. They are responsible for around 10% of carbon emission around the world. And in case of India, that is only 7.09%. So they wanted India to commit in the carbon emission target. But they did not want themselves to be committed in the target that was set by themselves. So on 2nd October 2015, but even after that, on 2nd October 2015, India committed to reducing the emission intensity of its GDP by 33.35% from 2005 levels by 2030 and achieving 40% of its cumulative electric power, around 350 gigawatt from non-fossil fuel based energy resources, mainly the renewable power. So you can see the India's commitment. The Prime Minister Modi has committed to the world that India will become the net zero country by 2070. So you can see the India's commitment. India has also formed the Global Solar Alliance. And India is also pushing for the renewable energy. India is mixing methane in crude petroleum because to reduce the dependence on the crude oil. So India is committed on reducing, but these are the countries and their invisible hands wants India to reduce more and more. So India now joins the ranks of the global economics, including the United States, the European Union, China, Canada, Brazil, which have declared their intended national determined contribution, that is called the INDCs. So the statement came ahead of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, which is UNFCCC, in December 2015, where Prime Minister Narendra Modi brought on board and they stated that the climate justice was achieved. So India achieved its target. What about the other Western nations? They did not achieve. They were primarily responsible for the emission of the greenhouse gases. Still they are not committing to their targets. Still they are pushing India to accept the renewable energy by using the different kinds of groups, those who are responsible to spread the propaganda in the name of climate change. And these NGOs and these groups are the Greenpeace, the CODID, the Action Aid, the Amnesty International, and the others. There are several other groups. Those who are hampering the country's energy independence, citing the environmental, economic, or human right concern. The human right is their pet child. That they love human rights. I do not know where the human rights came from, because these Western countries are responsible for war in the different parts of the world. Even they are lecturing India, particularly India, on the issue of the human rights. Look at China. The human rights violations are being committed by the Chinese communist government every day. In Xinjiang, they are eliminating the indigenous Uyghur populations. They are eliminating indigenous Tibetan populations. They are also eliminating the Mongols, the inner Mongols. There are Mongols. They are eliminating every indigenous population, those who are living in China. They are promoting the Han Chinese culture, Han Chinese traditions. So, in that case, the world is mum. But in case of India, they are advocating India with the help of these infamous NGOs. Those who are lecturing India on the issues of environment, on the issues of economic stability, on the issues of human right concerns. And they are not only pushing those organizations, they are also pushing some other organizations. There is a man called the George Soros. This infamous man have an organization called the Open Society. And that open society is responsible for reducing the India's by reducing one of the famous Indian organizations share price to its nadir. So you can see that how these groups are working. And George Soros also have an organization called OCCRP. That OCCRP is responsible for harming that organization which was responsible for the infrastructure building in India. And some other organizations called the NED. The NED stands for the National Endowment for Democracy. And there is another organization called the World Movement for the Democracy, which is actually the founder of the National Endowment for Democracy. These organizations are on the watch list of the Home Ministry, because these are the organizations, because NED and the WMD. The NED stands for National Endowment for Democracy and the World Movement for Democracy. These two organizations are state sponsored. The United States sponsored, particularly sponsored by the US aid. These organizations are pushing their agenda into the Indian market to manipulate the Indian market the way they want to. And they are also hiring some of the Indians, the infamous Indians, though they are forcing those Indians, they are particularly controlling those Indians to create the groups. In case of you can see there is two particular groups I will going to name, and those two particular groups are infamously responsible for the agitation, creating the agitation in India, creating some other problems in India, creating some kinds of mayhem through the Supreme Court, through the law, to hampering the development of the country. And that two organizations, one is Sabrang Trust and the another one is Lawyers Collective. And those two organizations' license was cancelled by the Home Ministry, because the Sabrang Trust is run by the Javed Anand and his wife Tista Setalvad. Do you know who is Tista Setalvad? The Tista Setalvad is the woman who orchestrated the जो प्राइम मिनिस्टर मोदी के ऊपर जो चार्जेस था, उसने वो सब सारा चार्जेस ऑर्केस्ट्रेटेड किया and went to the Supreme Court to frame all the blames, to frame the Prime Minister Modi, to put all the blames of 2002 Gujarat riot. They are mum on the other things, but in case of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, they are coming out and open, and they plan something to destroy the political career of the Prime Minister of this country. And look at the Lawyers Collective. Lawyers Collective is founded by the Indira Joy Singh and Anand Grover. These two lawyers are also being funded by some of the organizations, those who comes under the clouds of that group, that deep state. These are the things, these are the groups are particularly responsible for things around India, in India, particularly in India. So these things needed to be controlled, and the present government of India is cancelling several FCRA license of several NGOs, those who are responsible for creating mayhem in India. Recently, we saw the CAA riot in Delhi in the name of religion, and we also saw the so-called protest by the farmers of India against the 3 bills passed by the government of India to help the farmers to sell their goods in an open market. And there was an agitation. Then agitation received some support from these organizations, and Canada also supported that agitation. But when the agitation happened in Canada, what Justin Trudeau did? Justin Trudeau exercised the emergency power. Today, when we are making this, I'm making this topic, there is a news that the Federal Court of Canada has told Mr. Trudeau that the power that he exercised during the time of truckers' agitations was not according to the Constitution. he forced agitators and he cancelled the bank accounts of those agitators, and he took the harsh steps against those agitators to stop the agitations. But in case of India, they came and lectured India that what to do and what not to do. So these are the things these groups do. And these groups, the working of these groups has been exposed by the by the Intelligence Bureau, and the report was published in 2014, and the report titled "The Concerted Efforts by Selected Foreign Funds NGOs to Take Down Indian Development Projects," and had stated that a significant number of NGOs in India funded by the donor based in the United States, United Kingdom, Germany and Netherlands are using the people-centric issue to stall the development project. We all know, being an Indian, we all know that the Narmada Bachao Andolon. The Narmada Bachao Andolon was spearheaded by Medha Patkar. Who was funding Medha Patkar? Because the agitation cannot go on without the help of the money. The money is needed to run any kinds of thing at this time of the world. So Medha Patkar was there to stall the projects, to stall the building of the dam. That dam was required for the drinking water, so to provide the drinking water to the population of Gujarat and some parts of Madhya Pradesh. And that woman, the Medha Patkar, was responsible for the Narmada Bachao Andolon. And not only that, even in the Kudankulam nuclear power project, which was being made by the Russia. So when that thing happened, then the agitation was orchestrated by some of the groups, as mentioned by the Intelligence Bureau in its report of 2014. And also the mega industrial projects like POSCO, Vedanta, the hydel projects in Gujarat and Arunachal Pradesh, and extractive oil and the limestone activities in the northeast, and there are several others. There are several other projects. Those who were hindered with the help of some of the groups funded by the NGOs and controlled by the invisible hands. You know what I am talking about. So why those groups was there to prevent the India's developmental projects? Because if India will going to go forward, then one of the power corridor will going to be created after China. They did not want India to become a powerful state, because if India became a powerful state, then the Western countries have to control. According to them, they have to control the two power centers, and according to them, that these two power centers can challenge the hegemony of the United States and hegemony of the other countries. And the other countries, in this case, the Western European countries. In the Western European countries, there is a United Kingdom. Now, India is the 5th largest economy of the world, and now these countries are trying their best to stall the India's projects. The projects, those who are responsible for the development in India, they are trying their best to stalling those projects. And in the IB report, there was also details of the wave of donors and the NGOs relation and the financial transaction movements and the other data to show how the India's economic independence were being impinged upon. The reports detail the activities of the Greenpeace International and its funding nexus. Greenpeace is an infamous organization which is single-handedly responsible by destroying different projects, different developmental projects in India and also around the world, in Australia, in Israel, in New Zealand. These are the allies of the United States. That Greenpeace is also responsible for destroying those development projects in those countries too. Look at their activities. It also detail in the report. It also detail that how the Greenpeace is assisted by the US-based Center for the Media and the Democracy, that is funded by the Ford Foundations and the Rockefeller Foundations, and creating the agendas to target the India's energy security by opposing thermal and the nuclear power plants, citing the climate change to benefit the Western corporate giants investing in these sectors. India signed the nuclear deal with the United States during the time of George W. Bush in around 2006. But they did not provide India the nuclear power plants. They did not help India to build the nuclear power plants. Even today, not a single nuclear power plants are being built by the United States even today, after signing the nuclear deal in 2006. But they are expecting those organizations and their organizations, they are funded organizations, to do the projects in India instead of Russia. But they are charging India the greater amount of money. Even after that, they want India to accept those offers and help those organizations to build the nuclear power plants in India, even at the exorbitant price. Is that possible? So these are the ways these companies are controlling the markets in India. Look at the NGO diplomacy. NGO diplomacy in this case, we will going to say, this is not an NGO diplomacy. This is something which can say is an extortion. In Russia, what the Russia did, Russia is against all the Western NGOs. That is why the Russia already had a law against the foreign agents. In this case, the foreign agents means the local NGOs that received the funds from the overseas to carry out the political activities. But in July 2012, the President Vladimir Putin signed a new law. According to the new law, the Russia's previous law defined the high treason as the threatening the state through the espionage. Those are the organizations, Western organizations, were banned by the new law to operate in Russia. So look at what Russia did. And after that, in China also did the same. China allowed those organizations to operate in China. But after some time, when the Jasmine Revolution occurred, Jasmine Revolution means the Arab Spring. Arab Spring happened in the 2011 during the time of Barack Obama. What happened in Tunisia? A man set himself in fire because of the government policies and the different policies that was hampering their livelihood of that person, that fruit seller. The fruit seller burned himself, and after that event got bigger. And in the name of that event, the Arab Spring happened. The Arab Spring actually occurred in Tunisia, but it spread across the Western Asian countries. The Jasmine Revolution happened with the help of these NGOs. And with the help of this NGO, the social media ka bhi help tha. Facebook was also responsible, because at that time the communications was being done by the agitators through the Facebook post and the Facebook communication network. So Facebook ka bhi help tha. At that time Twitter was not there. I think Twitter was not there. And some other social media networks, those who were responsible in today's time, was also not there. So Facebook was the only medium through which those agitators were communicating among each other. So what happened? That when the Jasmine revolutions happened in the Western Asia, then the government in Egypt changed. The Libya became a failed state. The Iraq became a failed state. Syria became almost a failed state, but it was protected by the Russia. That is why it is still there. Its president Assad is still there, because the main goal of the United States was that to remove the Assad from the throne. And that is why the Jasmine revolution created the fear into the hearts of the China. That is why China also brought a law that वो लॉ ने क्या किया, लॉ ने जो restriction था, restriction increase कर दिया. So the Western NGOs, those who are engaging in doing business, doing work in China, that all those organizations had to register with the government portal, I mean CCP portal, the Chinese Communist Party's portal. And after that, the government, if the government think they can do the work according to the government rule, they have to work, if the government is giving them permissions to work in the mainland China. So you can see that thing. In February 2006, Israel has also passed the similar law to regulate the coercive activities by the NGOs. So that met with huge criticism, because Israel is the group of that so-called, not in the so-called, in the group of the invisible hand, those who are controlling the world, because Israel is a state which was created by these Western groups. When you will going to see the history of the Rothschild, then you will going to see the creations of the Israel. You will going to see the creations of the Israel from the Balfour Declarations. So that is another matter. I will going to discuss that on another day. So when the laws was passed by the Israel, then it made huge criticism. तो लॉ पास होने के बाद क्या हुआ, तो जब नेतन्याहू फिर से प्राइम मिनिस्टर बना, तो उसने क्या किया, एक जुडिशियल रिफॉर्म लाया थ्रू द जस्टिस मिनिस्टर यारी लेविन. तो वो जुडिशियल रिफॉर्म जब लाया गया, तब देयर वाज अ ह्यूज protest organized by some of the organizations, some of the NGOs, those who are still working in Israel. They organized huge protest against that judicial reform, and their argument was there that Israeli government should not get itself involved in selecting or electing the judges in the Supreme Court of the Israel. But the same thing is happening in the United States. That is right, but in case of Israel, that is wrong. It's an what can I say? It's an irony into the deep blue sky. Everywhere is blue, but if I or someone else is trying to turn itself into a blue, that is very wrong according to the blue. So, and also in Australia is a coal-rich nation, and when the Greenpeace actually misinformed the Australian people that Australian government is destroying the Great Barrier Reef to excavate the coal from that region. That was a misinformation that was spread by the Greenpeace, and after that the Australian government came up with the different kinds of law to restrict the work of these organizations. They have also hurt the interest of the particular country, those who are responsible, and those countries are responsible in contributing the world economy. So these are the very bad thing are being done by these countries. Look at these three charts. Look at the China's emissions. In 2021, the China's emission is 27%. But from 1990 to 2011, the United States contribution to the greenhouse gas emission is 16%. In 1990s, the emission, not in the 1990s, even in the 2000s, the greenhouse gas emissions by the United States was around 27%, which is in today's time, what is the China's data, which is China's percentage equal to the percentage of the United States when the United States were emitting that amount of greenhouse gas in around 2000s. So look at India. India is in 4th spots in 2021, and in between 1919 to 2011, India in 7th spot. So India's greenhouse gas emission is only 7% of the total greenhouse gas emissions of the world, and still India is responsible. Still these NGOs, with the help of the invisible ones, wants to control the energy security of India, because India is the future power, because India has the populations, because India's population is growing, India's population is stable, and the populations of the other countries, in case of China, the population has collapsed. In case of Japan, the population has collapsed. They are getting older. South Korea, it is getting older. Look at the United States, the population has collapsed. They are managing their population with the help of the peoples, those who are immigrating in the United States. So everywhere the population is collapsed except India. So India is the epitome of the global economy in the near future. That is why these countries are trying to control the India the way they want. So you can see that what is happening around the world. The 63% greenhouse gas emission is being done by the 90 companies. 90 companies. The first 90 companies are emitting the 63% of greenhouse gases. And among that 63%, 20 companies are responsible for the 30% of greenhouse gas emission. Still the United States, the organizations, those who are responsible for the emitting 30% of, they are not responsible for the greenhouse gas emission, but India is responsible. And the other countries, those who are growing, other African countries, those who are growing in today's time, they are responsible for the greenhouse gas emission, but those companies are not. Look at the irony. Now the seed industry. These organizations or invisible hands wants to control the world seed industry. The world seed industry is being controlled by these 4 organizations. Look at this name of the 4 organizations. The first is BASF, second is Bayer. Previously it was Monsanto. Monsanto was bought by the Bayer, then Corvetta, Agrisense, and then the Kim China. Kim China is a Chinese state fund company, state sponsored company. According to the report, and there are several reports, has indicated that these foundations, the Ford Foundation, Rockefeller Foundation, Rothschild, these are the organizations have heavy investment in this seed industry. And they are not only responsible for the production of seeds, they are also responsible for the distributions of fertilizers, chemicals around the world. They are also responsible for the distributions of different kinds of other agricultural goods around the world. So they have the monopoly. So therefore you can see the Ford Foundations, Rockefeller Foundations, and the other organizations, the Committee of 300, the Blindenberg Group, these are the groups, these are the invisible hands. They have the monopoly in producing the seeds around the world. What are these seed producing countries are doing? Seed producing, not countries, the companies are doing. They are destroying the indigenous seed system in Africa and Asia. They are pushing their own seeds, their engineered seeds into the markets of a particular country. In case of India, there are several seeds are being distributed by these organizations. And they are creating the mayhem. And there are 2 companies and they are controlling the 50% of the global market, and these 4 companies are controlling the 50% of the global market. In 2017, the Syngenta's turnover on the seed sales totaled almost 3 billion Swiss francs. Look at the Kim China Syngenta. They have generated $3 billion only in the 2017 by selling the seeds, only seeds. So you can clearly see how they are monopolizing the world. The 3 companies are controlling 50% and they are controlling around 45 to 50 billion Swiss francs. There are 5 largest corporations control the 95% of the vegetable seed market in the European Union, and the 75% of the market share was controlled by the 5 biggest companies. Among them, the Bayer and the Basel giant Syngenta controlled half of the Europe seed market for some selected vegetable. What are those selected vegetables? 56% of the paper, the bell pepper. Bell pepper varieties are being controlled by Bayer and the Syngenta. And after that, 62% of the tomato varieties are being controlled by these 2 organizations. And as much as 71% of cauliflower varieties are being controlled by these 2 organizations. Now in today's time, the AI market, the artificial intelligence market, the market of the robotics, the use of the AI, the use of the robotics, the use of the drones, the use of the blockchains are being implemented into the seed market. Then now these companies are heavily investing in the AI market. So they are trying to control everything. So what is their main goal, what is their intention, what is their intention to control the price. Their intention is to control, to monopolize the research and development market. That is why these organizations are investing billions of dollars into the US universities, into the universities in Europe, not into the universities in India, or not into the universities of Africa, or not into the universities of China, not into the universities of Russia. So Russia has banned these organizations to do the business in Russia, because Russia is using the indigenous seeds to produce their own food. They are maintaining their own food security, because food security monopoly is also their target. They are targeting the food security monopoly. They want to control the market. They want to control everything. They want to control every resources, including water. They want to control the distribution monopoly, because look at the logistic markets. Most of the logistic companies are being controlled by these few hands. With the help of the few hands, the distribution markets are being controlled, because all the ships and their insurance are being controlled by these organizations and their banks. Look at the money system, the system which is responsible for sending the money everywhere around the world. That is also controlled by these deep hands, these invisible hands. So they have monopoly around the world, and it is very tough for any country or any organizations in this time of the world to hamper their monopoly without the research and development. Because when any organization will come up with the different kinds of goods with the help of the research and development, what they have to do, they have to release their product into the market and trying to divert the market from them to their particular country where the research and development has done and where the products have actually originated. But this is a very tough time, because the money is being controlled. The money is being controlled by this deep hand, these four foundations, the Rockefeller Foundation, the Rothschild Foundation, the Committee of 300, and there are several other organizations. Several other organizations mean asset management organizations. There are asset management organizations like BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street. These are the organizations are managing the assets around the world, and these organizations have the assets of around $10 trillion. Each of them have assets of $10 trillion around the world. The Alliance Group, they have around $6.5 trillion of assets around the world. So this is a very tough time, and breaking the monopoly of the Western deep states, it's very tough at this time. But it can be done through the research and development, by implementing the educations at the every level, by implementing the ideology, the nationalistic ideology at every level, and by implementing cultural ideology. To stick to the cultural ideology will going to help the different countries to off limit for these organizations to manipulate the markets, to manipulate the systems, to manipulate the societies. So that is the only way we can, or one particular country can have the control on these kinds of monopolistic world. So thank you very much. Thank you for today.